So in this video, I'm going to give you the tips and strategies you need to beat these types of players in Play Now Online. For most users, following these 5 key strategies is all you're gonna need. No turnovers, keeping it simple, no easy baskets, winning the possession game, and using a healthy dose of basketball. That is, you don't want to lose in 2 out of the 3 categories such as 3 points, paint possessions, or free throws. And the first thing you want to do is set up your offense, and what you can see right here is me setting up my freelances. I chose 2 freelance offense, the first one being 5-out freelance. What a 5-out freelance is a way to set your players up to space the floor appropriately, seeing basically all of your teammates space outside of the 3-point line. This is good with teams with a lot of great ISO players and a lot of floor stretching bigs. You can also use it as a way to implement your spread pick and roll and attack players if you have one non-floor spacing big. The second freelance I like is the 21 delay freelance, which has a lot of options for off-ball screens, cuts, and a lot of 5-out isolation opportunities. I like to use this when I'm going up against a very good off-ball player who likes to sniff out the 5-man ISO or spread pick and roll offenses. This just gives them a different look. And as you can see, the 21 delay freelance just basically gives you a versatile way to attack your defenders with different types of off-ball actions, giving you opportunities to improvise and beat your defender in many different ways. The next thing I want you to do is to set up your defense, and to do that, basically pick your matchup appropriately. So I want Lu Dort, my best defender, on Donovan Mitchell, SGA on Darius Garland, and I want to make sure that I have the appropriate defensive coverage settings for bigs, for shooters, and all of that. If you want details on that, let me know for a future video. So the first thing I do right here is to set up my offense to make sure that my freelance is activated. I activate 5-out freelance, and what you'll see right here is that all my players are spaced outside of the 3-point line. I also noticed that he's going off ball, and that means you need to use all your tools to beat off-ball players. We'll discuss more of that later on, but the next thing I want you to be mindful about is to not aggressively pick up your matchup on the full court setting. Basically, what this does is it makes it easier for your defender to beat you and create chaos that way. So the important thing I did right here is that not only am I picking up the ball handler, but I'm also looking at off-ball movement, and what I saw right there was a back screen that freed up Donovan Mitchell briefly, but I was able to respond very quickly. The next thing I want you to do is every time you make a stop is to push the pace, but do it responsibly and only if you see a scramble situation. A lot of easy buckets in NBA 2K25 are created out of these push the pace situations, leaving one defender to scramble and leave one guy open. So once again, the defensive game plan right here is to make sure I don't give up threes and make sure I take away the point of emphasis of my opponent, and that is the paint. There is one big mismatch, Evan Mobley on Jalen Williams in the paint, that I want to avoid, but anytime I make a stop, if it's a turnover, a steal, or a block, I'm pushing the pace 100% of the time. So the next thing I want you to do is to recognize the points of emphasis or the game plan of your opponent. My opponent right here chose the Cleveland Cavaliers because of the paint dominance of both Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Gathering this information will help me set my defensive coverage for this matchup later on. Speaking of gathering data, I want you to use the first quarter to scout your opponent. Most of the time, we're faced with random opponents. We don't know what they exactly want to do. They usually have a few key set plays, which my opponent uses to good brilliance right here. I overreacted Donovan Mitchell going up against these staggered screens. As you can see, I completely abandoned the paint defense going 2 for 1, which opens up the paint for an easy dunk. This is data that I will use later on. But now that I know my matchup, I know that he wants to push the paint. But I also know that if Evan Mobley is coming out from outside of the paint, it will make his job a lot harder. So what he will use are pick and rolls, a lot of backdoor cuts, a lot of different ways to try to get his bigs into the paint. So I have to be in position and be ready to contest. So breaking down that defensive possession a little bit more slowly, Jalen Williams is a good perimeter defender. If Evan Mobley, who has not a lot of perimeter skill, uses that to attack the paint from outside the paint, that's easy work for me. So what he does right here is to try to see which is the best way to attack me through a pick and roll. So he settles for the corner for an empty side pick and roll. I play 2-on-1 defense right here. Attempt a steal to try and play the passing lanes. He's too far out. A simple bump will get Evan Mobley out of sorts. Having to kick it out, try to reset and force a backdoor cut. Just be in position between your defender and the rim and press jump to contest appropriately. And what did we say about defensive stops and scramble situations? That is right. Push the pace, try to make sure you catch your defense off guard and make them pay out of those scramble situations, especially with transition threes. Threes and possessions matter so much in a play now online game where there are only 5-minute quarters. Every possession matters. That's why you should give up things that your opponent will not be comfortable doing. Know your matchup. I know that I can help off of Jarrett Allen and to some extent even Evan Mobley, even though Evan Mobley is a better shooter. I am leaving Jarrett Allen at any chance that I get if he tries to get deep into the paint with Evan Mobley to attack Jalen Williams. So here I'm fine trying to collapse on Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell and give that easy jump shot to Jarrett Allen because he ain't going to make that. And as I said earlier, push the pace, try to see what we can get out of scramble situations. We get Darius Garland deep in the paint for an easy 2 points. That is a mismatch I will try to exploit at any point during this game. So what we're doing right here is playing good efficient offense and good efficient defense in a way that we are not forcing gambles, not stealing the ball, putting us out of position, giving up opportunities to players that are matchup determinants. For example, if you see Jarrett Allen outside the paint, leave him be. That is okay. And what happens here is that using these core principles on defense, not pressing up on our matchup, being aware of the play call from the earlier possession. Now, instead of double teaming Donovan Mitchell outside, I just know that I will switch this matchup, putting Jalen Williams on Donovan Mitchell as he exits these double staggered screens, not creating an advantage for the offense. And what this does is I'm able to stop any quick pass to the paint, not giving up any advantage. I see the backdoor cut because Evan Mobley is raising his hands and cutting towards the basket. I abandon Jarrett Allen with Isaiah Hartenstein right here to clog the paint. And what I will do is give up the exit pass to Jarrett Allen in the corner, who I don't mind shooting. I don't jump even if he pump fakes. I leave him open and rotate to Isaac Okoro, who's a decent 3-point threat. And just by collapsing the paint, we are able to force a turnover. And what did we say about turnovers? Every time you create a turnover leads to easy baskets. And every time your opponent is struggling on offense, don't give up anything easy. This would have been an easy dunk with Evan Mobley. Don't be afraid to take that foul to make sure that you don't give up an advantage or any easy buckets because momentum can swing pretty quickly in NBA 2K25. But alas, I use my off-ball defensive watching here to go to sleep and basically allow an easy 2 points anyway. I'm upset with myself at that. I call a timeout. Next thing I want you to do is identify a mismatch, and in this situation, I identified Darius Garland as a mismatch against SGA. An easy strong handle spin basically gets me an opening to the paint. And now I'm gathering information once again on how his off-ball defensive rotations are set up. I noticed that he likes to abandon the 3-point line to collapse on the paint, and we'll see a lot of that later on. And another thing, man, this is NBA 2K25. Off-ball plays are so good. The playbooks, the freelances, the freestyling out of different types of plays is so good. You're gonna need to do a combination on off-ball and on-ball. That goes for play calls, that goes for ISOs, that goes for pick and rolls. And here is an example of trying to use the mismatch against our opponent. We are in our 5-out offense, so we call for a spread pick and roll. Jalen Williams pops out. He's a threat from 3. That's why Evan Mobley has to switch. But Evan Mobley doesn't have the highest perimeter defense, so we attack him with a strong handle spin. So breaking that down again, I call for an ISO to basically space the floor out. I call on Jalen Williams with a manual pick and roll. Tap L1, hold triangle, and then tap R1 again to call for a pick and fade. Evan Mobley right here is the off-ball defender, and he'll be trying to rotate on whatever type of action we get on a two-man game. Donovan Mitchell right here is sinking to try to see what the defense does and be in position to help. But he doesn't sink deep enough that we are able to pass it to Lou Dort in the corner. That is one pass away that he can recover from quickly, so we give it to Jalen Williams on the top, creating a switch. Now, Evan Mobley has his hands up. That means he'll be slow out of lateral attacks. We want to force this bump right here so we can attack him with a strong handle spin, leaving him vulnerable for an easy dunk. And that's just knowing mechanics, matchups, and a lot of different ways to attack your defense. And here is a defensive possession where I show you a big mistake that can lead to easy baskets. As you can see right here, Evan Mobley is not a threat from perimeter. But for whatever reason, I closed out on him aggressively, giving him an easy lane to the basket. Donovan Mitchell drive is thwarted easily, so now he's just trying to rotate, trying to see what opens up. He's just passing the ball, playing hot potato. Because of the spacing, Evan Mobley flares out to the middle of the floor. And as you can see, I basically just tried to rush him out of that three-point line when Evan Mobley is not a threat. Big mistake, costing me an easy 2 points. And this right here is another example of me giving something up a little bit too easily. I know his game plan is to try to attack the paint, and I just basically put myself out of position to give him an easy bucket. So that one's 13-point lead is now down to 7, and things are getting a little bit precarious. Even though you played about as perfectly as you did in the first quarter, NBA 2K25 is a game where a lot of randomness really affects the outcome of the game. So you should definitely know that unless your opponent is complete cheeks, that a run is coming. And especially with this guy's record, he is not one to give up. Basically, again, I commit another mistake. I overreact here by leaving Caris LeVert a little bit to basically show on the exit of Donovan Mitchell right there. But he attacked the paint and drew my Lou Dort in to give him an easy 3 points. And just like that, the lead is now only down to 5. So as good as the first quarter was, he responded really well in the second. And my advice in these situations is to not panic. That will happen, especially against good players. It's not always going to be a flood, especially in NBA 2K25. So now basically this guy knows what he's going up against, and he is in full sweat mode. Basically just doing backdoor cuts and easy cuts to the paint, using someone like Jarrett Allen, who's a really good finisher. He's also now went full off ball, using Jarrett Allen to basically sit in the paint, basically telling me that no way in hell will SGA win this game for you by constantly attacking the paint. Took me a few tries to realize, because I was basically a little bit stubborn and wanted some of those SGA finishes, but now things are starting to unravel. I gave up a few easy buckets in the paint. I'm spamming these paint possessions, which I shouldn't be, so now I'm making an adjustment. Anytime I push the paint, I will always look out to kick out for an open 3, and I'm starting to do that right there. I missed that shot, but that's fine. That was the shot we wanted. And here is how things can snowball really easily. What should have taken the foul right there, but you know what? It is what it is. Now he's up by 1. And anytime you give up a lead after having a big lead, it's important that you go to your bread and butter and your meat and potatoes, and that's basically get an easy bucket. In this situation, I use spread pick and roll. Notice that he's not using Jarrett Allen to play free safety. Basically hit him with that left stick sauce. Donovan Mitchell is the helper, and we easily dunk on Donovan Mitchell to stop his momentum. So now I'm a little bit more aware of his strategy, and now I'm going off ball to see who he's going to use to get those backdoor cuts. I already thwarted one right there, but now I know that he's going to go for spread pick and roll. He's not going to shoot that with Caris LeVert. He's just going to try to spam these paint finishes. So now he's just trying to rotate, get another backdoor cut to Jarrett Allen, but Isaiah Hartenstein's right there in really good position. And what did we say about getting a defensive stop? You push, and you attack. We got the foul and an easy and 1. And now I know basically to make that adjustment, anytime I try to attack the paint, I force his AI and himself to rotate. Here, I fake and attack the paint, Jalen Williams flares out for spacing for another easy 3. So this is another way to punish off-ball defenses because he likes to off-ball with Jarrett Allen because Isaiah Hartenstein isn't a floor spacer. I use him as a pick-and-roll lob threat, but he flares out right there. I use Isaiah Hartenstein once again for another pick-and-roll lob threat. Attack the paint right here. Force 2 defenders on 1 because he's going off-ball. Basically collapse that off-ball defense and then just kick it out for an easy 3-point bucket. And you know, basically that's not going to deter my opponent from just keep using backdoor cuts, which in my opinion, a little bit improved compared to NBA 2K24 where they were so powerful. If you have the right defensive settings, for the most part, you'll be in position. But a lot of these sweaty dudes really like to use that pick and roll or that backdoor cut to try and attack you to get easy buckets. So be sure that when you see that handout animation, be sure you're in position to try to stop that basically backdoor cut. And here's another example of just me being a little bit lucky, but also me knowing the stick skills and what I can do to try to create an advantage out of a situation where basically I had nothing. At some points, good players will force you into situations where you will basically have to pull something out of nothing. That's easier said than done, but once again, that's why you try to develop stick skill as much as you can. And as you can see, he's committed to fully going backdoor because he's got nothing for me when I go on ball defense. So he's trying to win the easiest way that he can. So once again, we're trying to create scramble situations out here. He did not leave any of our shooters wide open. So now he's going off ball. We call for a backdoor cut, give him a little taste of his own medicine, give him a pump fake and an easy 2 points right here. So now I have a little bit of separation, but I know if I push this to one more possession of separation, he will start to do some uncharacteristic and undisciplined things that will set the game up wide open. So once again, he's off ball with Evan Mobley, but this time instead of pick and rolling, I am pick and fading with the Thunder's best 3-point shooter, and that's the separation that we need. I did not go to pick and fades earlier in the game so that in this situation, I punish him with something he's not seen before throughout this game. So once again, we force another easy turnover. And if he's going off ball, once again, we're just going spread pick and roll. He did not stop that Jalen Williams pick and pop. So now we're going back to SGA and Jalen Williams, back to that 2-man action. If he's going to sink and help that way, his rotations are off. Another easy 3. And basically, if you're in the 4th quarter and you create this much separation, that is basically the game. With less than 3 minutes left, he goes for another Hail Mary, a full court heave for a backdoor cut. It is what it is. At this point, I am not concerned now. We have him figured out. He has no response for that pick and fade. So we mix things up a little bit, going with pick and roll with Isaiah Hartenstein. But once again, we try to kick the ball out, set the defense up in such a way that we're going to get the floor spacing that we want with SGA and Jalen Williams. Collapse the paint easily once again for another wide open 3, and that is basically the ball game. So basically what this video shows is against a lot of these guys, and this guy is pretty good with a high 80%, I think a 77% or an 80% win rate. Basically what you need to do is to have a sound defensive game plan. Do not commit any turnovers. Maximize your possessions. You guys know me. I like to do my ISO. I like to do a lot of these fancy things. But sometimes when someone's going hard off ball in the way that he did, a lot of it is simplifying your game, being good at 2-man offense or off-ball offense, and making sure that you get easy buckets aside from situations where you're gonna have to force something out of nothing. So once again, what are the 5 core principles for beating these types of players? Number 1, no turnovers. Number 2, keeping it simple. Number 3, nothing easy. Number 4, winning the possession game. That means maximizing your possessions and having more possessions. That is linked to no turnovers. And number 5, a healthy dose of basketball. My opponent has made it a point to attack the paint. Free throws are basically non-existent. So if I don't win the paint battle, I need to win the 3-point battle. And if we take a look at the box score and the team statistics, that is exactly what I did. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If you want to win more in Play Now Online, I've got a second video that shows you 2 full games going up against equally sweaty players. Check that out in the description below. I'll see you in the next one.